comes to my health, I like to think that I have a very proactive approach. I prioritize good food, I prioritize my exercise, and I prioritize my sleep, things that are really, really important overall in our general health. So how come if I'm so proactive, when I go for a blood test, how come when I get the results back, I focus like a crazy woman on the abnormals that come up? How come those abnormal results are the only values that I'm interested in? I go like a bat out of hell to check out what it is that's abnormal, because of course that's human nature. But then what we're doing is we're reacting and we're not being proactive. So what I'd like to talk to you about in this video is not to forget about the normal values. Once I kind of got my head around the abnormals and I went through some of my other values, I realized that there's a certain trend that I really ignored completely. What prompted this whole kind of new approach that I've come up with checking my normal results? Well, let me tell you, it started with an abnormal result. I had my blood work done, and one of the things that came back as abnormal was my B12. And I thought, wow, B12, but it's always been normal. So what was very shocking to me is that suddenly it was extremely high. Now, I've always supplemented my B12, mainly because I know that as we age and over 50, we're not really absorbing as much B12 as possibly we need, even though I know, and my diet is really good, and we generally get our B12 from our diets, and it's eggs and meat and dairy, all of which check, check, check. But I also know that many people that are suffering with cognitive decline, my mother died with Alzheimer's, her B12 was always very low and they had to supplement her. So I kind of thought, well, you know what, I really should kind of supplement with B12, and I've always been within the normal range. Now when I saw that the B12 was high, I went and looked back, because what's more important than the snapshot of that blood work is the trend. And had I looked prior at the normal results, I would have been able to see that my B12 was gradually increasing to the point that finally it clicked over that tiny little line. And I know that the blood results, there has to be a limit. There has to be somewhere along a scale that stops from normal to abnormal. How many times, if you now look at your normal results, do you see, hey, I was right there. I was right there, right 1 point less than what's going to kick me up to abnormal. And had I seen that, maybe I would have realized that I could have been a little bit more proactive and not put myself into the abnormal state. Although there's nothing really particularly concerning about having higher B12 unless you get really into astronomical figures. When I went to speak to my doctor after, and he said to me, well, so you've been supplementing with B12 every day? And I said, yes, so now I've stopped completely. And he goes, well, you didn't really need to stop completely, Nancy. So the doctor suggested maybe every other day supplement with B12. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I do have other examples within my most recent blood work, but this isn't all about like examining where Nancy is normal and not quite normal, because hey, that goes way beyond the blood work. But what I really want to focus on is that normal isn't always optimal. Normal may be on the cusp, and I mean really on the cusp, of what they're going to consider abnormal. So some of those things we can actually jump on the bandwagon ahead of time before we get to abnormal. Let's just take our A1C, because that's something that I've really been focused on lately, and that is our sugar, our blood sugar. Because, if we're keeping an eye on that, if we just are like, really complacent and feeling, oh wow, our A1C, it's fine. But you're not looking at that trend. You're just looking at, oh, normal, I got the green light, I'm doing A-okay. But it's creeping. And if it's creeping, you're talking about 1 point different that all of a sudden you're pre-diabetic. But was it really all of a sudden? Had you been checking your normal trend prior to that, you might have been able to be proactive, started more exercise, starting to cut certain things out of your diet, and maybe you would have avoided tipping yourself over into that abnormal state. Really small changes to your diet, to your exercise, to your supplements, to your lifestyle can make a huge difference onto these numbers that we think are normal. I just really, it's fascinating. I just feel like I've missed out on this entire segment of being a little bit proactive because I had such feeling of, wow, everything is fine. And everything is fine. Don't get me wrong. Don't go getting all crazy. Just feeling that, I maybe have a little bit more power to do things ahead of time. Just exactly what I'm saying. Being a little bit more proactive instead of being reactive. Ignoring borderline results because we're technically okay, we may be ignoring an opportunity to intervene early so that we can catch something before it happens. Next time you get your blood work done, if you're not like me and you get your results to you, but you have to go to your doctor, maybe you could sit down and you could say to that doctor, okay, so my results are normal. What about the trends? Because really, that is the key. What is the trend? Because in isolation, sometimes things in isolation are not telling us the picture. You really need to see what you've done 6 months ago or 12 months ago or 18 months ago and see where that trend is. Are you trending down? Are you trending up? Are you within range or just so close to being into a situation that you then do have to worry about? So the trend is hugely important. I brought up this very point when I went to consult with my doctor about my blood work. And he said to me, yes, you're right. You could check these things and try to be a little bit proactive, but don't get crazy, Nancy. You're perfectly fine. And you know what? Thank you for that. Maybe you want to take a few minutes and go back at your last blood results and maybe the ones before that and just check your normals if you've maybe overlooked that because, hey, we're normal. That feels pretty good. But maybe take a look at them and see where it is on that scale. Are you optimal? Or is your body trying to give you advance warning of something? But again, I don't want you to stress about it. Like if you're getting close to the ranges, it's really fine. Again, the trend is important and we're not looking to like dig up stuff, but if there is something that you can intervene early, maybe cut your B12 to every other day instead of every day like I was doing. Maybe small little changes. If your A1C is creeping, maybe you want to cut back on the sweets, add some more walking. Small little differences can make a huge difference in the big scheme of things. So, I hope that this is kind of like a PSA today. It's something that I learned just from looking at my own results. And I thought maybe I'd like to pass it along to you and see if you might get something out of it too. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.